Hello, hello, everybody. Thanks for joining today. Welcome to our React Web Database workshop. So again, my name is Nim Grinvald. I am the technical evangelist here at Kintone, and my job is to help you discover how to build cool stuff with our platform, on our platform, to help business people do their day-to-day business stuff. So these are the first few steps that I'm going to ask you to take if you have not done so already. First is to download the code and the slide deck. You'll see that we've got the links available right over here, right over here, and over here, and over here. Oh, oops, there are no links over here, just over here. So this is this link over here, bit.ly/KDP_React_2. This is going to get you the code and the slide. And Nikki, our partner in crime today, is going to be dropping that link in the chat. Actually, and then we are going to ask you, if you have not done so already, please go ahead and sign up for a Kintone developer account. We're going to hook you up with a free Kintone subdomain for developer use only. So this is a cool way to get that hook up. In order to do that, you're going to need to create a developer account with us if you have not already, and then create your own Kintone subdomain. And of course, you can post questions in the chat at any time. There might be points where you run into some errors. Just make sure when you ask us for help with your errors, you include the input, the output, and your error messages so that we can help you troubleshoot your code. There's going to be a $25 gift card raffle at the end, so stick around. We want to hook you up. And the recording is going to be shared, so if you leave in the middle, you don't stick around until the end, we still love you. Come back next time, and we'll see you around. Let's dive in with a little bit more housekeeping. And you're going to just touch briefly on the code and the slide, the link that Nikki dropped. This is what it's going to look like. It's going to drop you into a GitHub gist. You're going to click on that download zip button. And if you want to, that'll download everything. And if you want to scroll selectively to view what you're looking for, you can scroll down to these other files. And to sign up for a developer account, you'll follow this link. Don't use Safari. Make sure you accept cookies. You can use Chrome and Firefox, and that'll sort you out real good. And then when you create a Kintone subdomain, you'll follow this link over here. And folks, when you create your Kintone subdomain, which you'll get shortly, make sure you're not using any special characters. You'll name your subdomain with only lowercase numbers and hyphens, such as weekend-hacker or coffee for life. Joining me are my colleagues, Will Sayama from all the way joining us in Tokyo. Will, do you want to give a little video? Hello?
Yeah, how you doing?
Will is our developer advocate, and he is one part of the brains and brawn behind the machine that brought you this workshop today. I also want to introduce my other esteemed colleague, Nikki Wong, our developer advocate. Nikki, you wanna say hello?
Hi.
Hey.
Looking forward to helping you guys out today.
Nikki, thank you so much for joining us. What we're going to make today is a project in Kintone that is a Manga database. And from here, we'll be able to show what the records in the database are, and then be able to add data to them. The data will be sent to the server and then to Kintone, and we'll actually be able to see in Kintone the updated record. So it'll be a soup to nuts. It'll be a soup to nuts passing of data from the client to the web service and back again. And so first, we're going to start up a React project. Then we're going to render an API response. We'll start we'll start an Express server, and we're going to call a web database. That first part is going to be the front end. That second part is going to be calling the API and outputting it to React. That third part, we're going to encounter CORS errors, cross-origin resource sharing errors. And so we'll go over setting up an Express server, and then that calling that web database is getting the data from Kintone and outputting it into React. If you want to follow along with us with an article, we've got like a very thorough and very easy to understand article series, courtesy of our Kintone developer program team, led by Will. And you can go ahead and click on that link, and it'll get you to that article series, which you can use to follow along at your own pace, or follow along with us, whatever you prefer. And again, big thanks to Will for putting this article series together. You put in the work and it showed, and we're very proud of it. Some other thing. You're welcome. We're going to make sure that you've got the right environment in order to begin playing with React. So what you're going to do is check your versions of Node and npm. Of your version of Node, and what you can do is you can type in node-v or npm-v. You need to make sure that it is above 10.16, and for npm it's 5.6. If you are not sure what node.js is, buckle up. Today is going to be a ride. But you can, if you need to install it, you can follow along with a companion video and check out that prep link over here. Okay, so what we're going to do at this point is start up a new project. So if you haven't already, you can make a new directory called my project, and then in your terminal you can navigate to my project, and then what you're going to do is you're going to type in a command npx create react-app front end. Okay. From here, that's going to begin installing a set of boilerplate React app under a folder called front end, which will be inside of your my project folder. And then that's going to take a few minutes to do. At which point, once that's done, you can change directory into front end and spin up VS Code and open it up over there. Inside the front end folder, we've got all of this boilerplate code. What we're going to do is you can open up a new tab in your terminal in this front end folder and hit npm start. And once you do, the development server that React has very kindly packaged with that create React app boilerplate package, it's going to let you start up a development server, easy as, and it'll look like this. You can go to localhost. Actually, it'll open up the tab for you at typically at localhost port 3000, and this is what it'll look like. We're going to begin by cleaning up that front end folder. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here that we don't need. And so please make sure that you are deleting this stuff. Once you do, you'll need to refresh your development server, but that's not a problem. So at this point, you can go ahead and delete, and I'll just go ahead and show you what this looks like. You can go ahead and delete all of these files. We don't need them. And we can delete all of these guys. We don't need those. And all we're going to stick with is this index.js file, which we're going to keep pretty simple. We'll come back to editing this file and cleaning it up in a little while. For now, it's okay if you leave it this way. And your development server, because you've deleted app.js, it'll give you a failed to compile. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of this in just a little bit. I want to give you a heads up of what we're going to be doing so you can understand, like you'll have a snapshot of our destination. So right now we've got this front end directory structure. So we've got my project that's at the that's our top level directory, and it's got a front end folder, and our front end folder, for our purposes, will have two important files in it. One is index.html, and the other is index.js. And this is a bit of an oversimplification, because technically index.js lives in a source folder that's underneath the front end, and the index.html lives in a public folder that's underneath front end. But what's important for you to get is just that, like, these are the two files that are going to be the most relevant for us for today. And then what we're ultimately going to do is we're going to create a folder called backend, in which we're going to have a JS file called server.js. This is where we will set up our Express server. But for now, we're going to go ahead and modify index.js. So this is where we are right now. This is inside the public folder. Let's do some live coding. What we're going to do is we're going to go into our index.js file in my project, and we're going to get rid of some of this stuff. App index.css. We're going to import React. We're going to import React DOM, and we've got this rendering thing that we're going to do. But let's empty that. We don't need this. All right. Now we're getting somewhere. So what we're going to do in React, we want to just, first of all, test to make sure that we can code over here in this JavaScript file, and we can see the rendered results in our on our development server. So to that end, we're just going to create a simple element. We're going to call it my element, and it's going to be these are the details of the my element. All right. Now this is not JavaScript, as you may have noticed. These are, these look a lot like HTML elements, and HTML doesn't go into JavaScript. So there's some magic happening behind the scenes over here that lets us write in this what's called JSX, this sort of, another way of saying that is syntactic sugar, this nice way of writing code that gives us flexibility to put snippets of HTML in here without putting them in like a string, and then to be able to take something like that and interpret it in a way that the transpiler will make sense of. What we're doing right here is we've identified this element, and we're appending it to an element called root. Like we should call this group next time, but we'll leave it for root this time. And so we need to. So what is this root element, first of all? Well, in index.html, we've got this div ID called root over here. So what we're doing is we're saying, hey, find me this this element with ID root, and then append my element to it. We can go ahead and save, and then refresh our development server. And you'll see, there we go. These are the details of the my element const. So far, so good. So now what we want to do is we want to start testing out API calls. So we need to, once we've visited this page, we want to start we want it to start interacting with data on our behalf. And so what we'll do is we will make our first API call to an endpoint called randomuser.me. Random user.me is pretty nice because every time we query that endpoint, it'll give us some fake persona. What we're going to do is we're going to keep this my element. We're going to keep this rendering function, and we're going to create a REST endpoint over here. Random user.me/API. And then what we want to do is we want to call this REST API. This is an asynchronous function. And what it's going to do is it's going to fetch REST endpoint. And then it's going to produce some kind of a response, which we will turn into JSON. And then we're going to log that response. Okay, so what happens when we refresh the page and reload the browser? Let's take a look. First of all, I'm going to refresh this. And what are we going to see in the custom element? Oh, well, it looks like we need to call
Just
this.
checking the file saved.
Oh, it is, but you know what I missed? The part where we're running the function. So we need.
Oh yeah, we're not. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, I was like, I'm missing something over here. Definitely missing something. Okay, well, not missing it anymore. Here are the results of the of that query. You'll notice I've got one page of results. Here are the results. It's this single item array with a name and a date of birth and all of this very interesting information. So every time we refresh this browser, we'll just get another random username. Okay, the last one was female. This one's male. And Monsieur Armand Robin from Switzerland. Cool. So we've got some rendered text that's displaying in our browser. We've got a successful API call that's fetching information. Now let's take this this response from the API and present it in our browser with it. Right. So what we're going to do is we are going to adjust our call REST API function. It's going to return a React element, and that's going to be a stringified version of this JSON response. So let's return react.create element. No, and JSON stringify JSON. And then we'll take out this bad boy over here, this root element. Oh no, I'm sorry. We don't need my element anymore. We'll call REST API. Okay. So what are we expecting? Well, we're expecting that we'll be able to produce a rendered result over here. It looks like we got thrown an error. Objects are not valid as a React child. And if you meant to render a collection of children, use an array instead. So the issue that we're running into is that we are, the React is demanding to show the user something. React is a front end framework. It is concerned with rendering elements to the user. And what we've hauled into its render function is an asynchronous function, which doesn't have anything to render in the beginning. It's just a promise. The promise, like as a promise object in JavaScript, is a placeholder, which says, hey, hold on to this. Do as much stuff as you can do with this, but in the meantime, just treat it as a black box. And we will go in, we'll get some data, and we'll get it. It'll return when it returns, and once it returns, then you can like do all of the other stuff that you need to do with it. Which, if it's operating in the background, typically not a problem. But if you're rendering elements to the user, is a big deal. It doesn't work. So we need some way to have React say, okay, listen, you're still waiting for that thing. Okay, well, give me something to show first. Give me something that I can show the user as like a default, like a default something, a default element to render, and then you can do the stuff. And when the stuff comes, then we can update the default render with the stuff that you really wanted to show. Okay, so let's go ahead and make those changes. What we're going to do is we're going to lean on React's hooks. We're going to use two hooks called the use state hook and the use effect hook. Okay, and what that does is two things. First of all, it allows us to have what's called like a state, like a place where that is like the single source of truth for the current, like our current pile of data, or what our current pile of data looks like. It's where React goes to determine what the way things are. In other words, the state of the machine, right? And then we also need a way to take that state and re-render the page and do it in an order that is acceptable given the way React works. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep this REST API, this REST endpoint. We're going to keep this call REST API, and then what we're going to do is we're going to mess around a little bit. We're going to create a function called called render result. Okay. And what's in this render result function? Well, we're going to use a little bit of ES6 notation to tell us. I'll explain this in just a moment. Let's go ahead and fill out some of this other stuff. So what's happening over here okay, so let's take a look at what's happening over here. Call REST API, then result. Okay, so what is this? Well, the way that we've set up this constant is we have the 2-item array, and the first item in the array is a variable called API response. Second item in the array is a variable called set API response. This use state function, which is a React function, it takes in one parameter. In this case, it takes in a string called now loading, and it's going to output an array with 2 items in it, which will match the format of the array that we've got over here. So one of the outputs is going to be API response, and the other is going to be set API response. And then what we're doing is we're saying at a particular point in time, we're going to call the REST API, and then when we receive our result, we're going to update the state with that result. So that's how we begin to manage the flow of data in the React app. And that's one of the biggest advantages of using React, is the way that we can thoughtfully reflect on how data moves around in an application. In this particular case, we're making an API call. It's getting handed over to the state. Once the state is updated, React will automatically re-render the updated elements that require the update. That's what React is good at, is like selectively identifying how and what to render, so we don't have to worry about it. Okay. And so what are we going to do with that? Well, we're going to return that information as a snippet of JSX. Here we're just we're putting in some syntactic sugar that looks a lot like HTML. And it's over here that we're telling React, okay, so you're handling the flow of data. You're handling the re-rendering of rendered items on the page, given the change in state. And this is where we're going to want you to put that updated information. And then we'll come down over here, and instead of call REST API, we're going to be interacting with render result. We can get rid of const my element at this point. We can get rid of call REST API at this point, because we're calling it in use effect hook. And so when we save this and refresh the development server, well, we'll refresh the page, and we're failing to compile. So something here is not what we're expecting. It looks like I have an errant parentheses. So we'll just go ahead and we'll fix that. Unexpected. Yeah, that's it. There was an extra one of those bad boys over here. Let's try that again. Okay, use state is not defined. We've got a reference error over here, and that reference error is, that reference error is happening because we didn't bring in, yeah, we didn't import that use state.
We didn't import it.
Yeah. Well, can only make that mistake that many times. There we go. Folks, did you see how once we refreshed the page, the first thing that we saw underneath the React app was now loading? And that's what React is demanding to do. It's demanding to show us some default rendered result before we, while we wait for the promise to resolve. And once we wait for the promise to, once the promise is resolved, then we present its results over here, which, you know, not a very nice thing to present, but it gives us like a validation that we are working, that things are working the way that we're expecting.
I think JSX is a bit wrong. It seems like everything's shown in an H1 style for some reason, but I am not sure why. There was an error in the console, by the way, about that.
Yeah, H1 cannot appear as a descendant of P. Just yeah, div React. It might be with the way that I am handling the create React element.
Yeah. Good
There
point.
we go. We're gonna get rid of this, so we're getting some weirdness happening over here.
Yeah, we don't need that line, do we? Oh no, we don't.
We need
Well,
some of it,
we need
but
some
not
of it.
all. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Oh, go teamwork. These errors are helpful for me to learn React. Good, because I'm gonna make plenty of errors, and if you're, and it'll be a great teaching opportunity for all of us, and we'll all have a good laugh. And then you can sleep soundly knowing that you didn't have to lead a workshop live and make errors live. That was on me.
Oh yeah, by the way, the video is going to be shared later, so you know, if you want to look through the errors again, we'll be sharing it. No worries.
All right, so what are we going to do next? Well, building, we're going to talk about building a server. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about cross-origin resource sharing. So here's the deal. When you are getting data from like you're on your browser, you want to get data from some website, you're on google.com. When you're interacting with google.com, your client, your browser, is expecting all of your interactions on that page to be to and from google.com. But the server that you're interacting with might be pulling from resources in other places. The thing is, you can't directly go to those resources yourself. It's kind of like when you're in a restaurant, you don't just, as a patron in a restaurant, walk into the kitchen and demand your meal and then grab it and sit back at your table. There's routing going on. There's like a server, literally like a waiter or waitress, we call it a server, that comes to your table, asks you what you want, delivers your message to the back of the house. The back of the house then does what it does, and then it comes back when it's ready and gives you, you know, a response to your request. Okay. What happens is if you're trying to be on somewhere called, let's say, like xkcd.com, and you're trying to access google.com from xkcd.com, or if you're on google.com and you're trying to access xkcd.com, you'll run into you may run into something called a cross-origin resource sharing error. And so that's that. To avoid those errors, we are going to set up a backend server, and that server will work on our behalf to handle all of those API calls that we want to make from our client and route them appropriately. We're going to do that with a back-end framework for Node called Express. So Express is a simple server, and what we're going to do with it is we're going to first make our back-end server. So let's, oh, okay, we don't have a back-end folder yet. Let's go ahead and create a back-end folder, and we will cd into the back-end. And then from here, we're just going to follow some pretty simple instructions to spin up an Express server. So first of all, we're going to initialize npm in this folder, and we can just hit all this stuff. This is okay. Perfect. And now we're going to install some dependencies. We'll install Express. We'll install node fetch. We'll install cores, which will enable us to navigate cross-origin resource sharing accordingly. And once this is done, we will create a new file in here called server.js. Now, if you'll take a look at my project, I've got backend now. I've got that server.js file that's brand spanking new. I just made it. Let's pull that terminal out. And this is what we're going to be editing. Okay, so what are we doing? Well, first, when we are spinning up an Express server, we're going to import some modules over here. So we're going to import Express. We're going to import cores, which will enable us to handle those cross-origin resource sharing options. We're going to, add a module to easily fetch things. And then we're going to start defining some ports. What we need to do is we need to define a port on our local machine for Express to run on. It's going to be port 5000. And from there, actually, we'll set up Express to listen at that port, and as like a callback, some kind of function that will kick off once the listening is successful. We're going to do a quick console log, example app listening at HTTP localhost, and we'll do that port, and we're going to use a template string so that we can just drop in that the value of that port variable right over there. Okay. So what else do we need to do? Well, now we also need to set up some routing behavior, right? So this server, when it's running, will be running this program essentially forever, waiting at this port to receive certain communications. Well, which communications? Well, it's going to be a fetch request. So when we get stuff, we're going to do a bunch of stuff. So when we receive a get request at the following routing endpoint, okay, so it'll be localhost :port/get data. We want to do a bunch of stuff. There's going to be some options that are involved. There's going to be like a callback that's going to handle what we do once we receive that request. So what are the options exactly? Well, these options are going to handle our cores needs. So you might ask, well, what are our cores needs? Let's build that up. Let's build that out right now. And you might be wondering, what is cores options? Well, cores options is we need to pass along some information. In this case, we're clarifying what our origin is, so that it can recognize, okay, where are we coming from? So can we allow this resource sharing request? So these are our options over here. And then what actually happens when we get a visitor to this endpoint? What are we going to do? Well, we need to indicate we need to define what kind of HTTP request this is going to be, and this is going to be a get method request. What's the response? What's going to happen when we what's going to happen? Well, we will request endpoint fetch options. So basically, go here and make sure you bring these options along with you. And we're going to want a response, nicely constructed response. Okay, so what have we got so far? Well, we're missing request endpoint. You might be wondering, what is that? We're waiting for that. Well, I didn't put it in yet. Here it is. We'll just pull that link off. Like so. This is where we're going. So when we get to this routing endpoint, with these options, do the following stuff. Make another request elsewhere. Where? To request endpoint. What's request endpoint? This place. Bring these options along with you. The options, namely that it's a GET request. Once you do that, await a response, then turn the response into JSON. And what we're going to do is you might be wondering, what are the parameters for this asynchronous function? Where did res come from? That's short for the response. Okay. I'm just going to have a quick look, make sure I didn't forget anything. All right, looks good. We're going to go ahead and save this. And now let's run our server. Node server.js. Cool. All right, we're listening at localhost 5000. This is exactly what we put out and put down over here. So now, how do we know that this is working the way that we're expecting? Well, we can visit that route and see if it gets us what we're expecting. So what we'll do is we'll go to localhost 5000/get data, which is the route that we had just defined. And this is exactly what we're expecting. We're expecting some kind of a response formatted as a JSON. In this particular case, this is our the very famous XKCD comic about Little Bobby Tables. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, check out number 327. It's worth it. Okay, let's take a look and see what we're going to do next. All right, well, what about connecting our front end to our back end? See, in our front end, we connected to this REST endpoint called random user, blah, blah, blah. But actually, that was like a good place to start, but now we've upgraded. Now what we'll be able to do is inside of our React application, inside of our React application, we'll be able to send a request to our server. And that server will send a request onward, receive that response, and send that response back to us. And in fact, that is something that we're supposed to have and it broke somewhere. Let's take a look. Updating the REST endpoint to our server. So what we are expecting is we're going to make a call to this place and localhost get data, and this will supposed to go ahead and grab us that information. Is anybody else running into the same error that I'm running into? Got now loading. So what's happening over here? SSL protocol error. Possibly because we're not Oh, interesting. It might just be HTTPS. It might just be HTTP on localhost. Let's give that a shot. Also, some issue with index.js line 17, which we'll come back to in just a minute if it doesn't fix things. Blocked by access, blah, 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 blah. Did I save my server.js? Did I save my index.js? Okay, issues with call REST API. Why is the server using HTTPS in place of HTTP?
Could you also change the HTTPS at the very bottom of the server.js?
Did I here?
Oh no, actually, wait, no, that's sorry. That's just the console, isn't it?
Yeah,
doesn't make a difference. Yeah.
Good eye though. Really good eye. So what are we seeing over here? Let's see this REST endpoint. So what am I? Let's take a look at what I'm expecting to have happen. I'm expecting you to land on this page of our development server. We see now loading. There is a call that goes out to this REST API point, and then it awaits a response. Okay, well, in the meantime, it sends that response, and this Express server receives the response. It receives it at the get data endpoint, okay? And then from there, it's going to make its own request outward to this API endpoint, and then await a response. And then once it gets the response, it's going to do something with it. What is it going to do? Well, it's going to present the response back to this bad boy over here. The state will then be updated with the value of the new response. And once the state is updated, useEffect will update the appropriate elements, JSX elements that need to be updated on our front end. So that is the whole flow of the behavior. So that's the behavior that we're expecting. So now we're going to take a look at why isn't this working the way that we would.
I didn't see when you restarted the server, but could you try that again? Save the file and then restart the server?
Oh, that might be it. It might be that because we made some changes to the server that I needed to X out of the server and then come back. So we've gone ahead and I've just closed the daemon and restarted it. And now let's see what happens. Will.
Oh, good.
I needed to restart the server. That was the thing to do.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky because our front end create React app comes with a module which restarts everything for you, but then the Express server doesn't have that. So
there's a tool I'm used to using called Nodimon, which automatically handles the restarting of the server. Can you please run the get data in the browser and see the request and the response headers? Okay, good luck. Thank you for your assistance with that. Okay, so fix that problem. Now what are we going to do? All right. Well, the next thing we're going to do is someone asked in the beginning of our time here today, what are we going to use as a backend web database, Postgres or MySQL? And I said we're going to use Kintone, which begs the question, what is Kintone? So Kintone is a no-code, low-code cloud platform that's designed for teams to easily share and collaborate on their data efficiently. And what's really special about it is it's not just like it's not like a complex backend database. What it is a lightweight database that allows folks that are not technical or even allergic to technology, or folks that are highly technical and just want to build things very fast. It enables them to build stuff in this platform in a very easy drag and drop way. And to also, in the ordinary course of doing business, there's like workflows that you need to manage. For example, expense reports, or building out a marketing campaign. And what happens is so what Kintone does is it puts the data and the conversations about the data all in one place. You end up running into this problem when you've got multiple apps talking about the data and multiple places where the data lives. And so the data's living in multiple places. The conversation about the data is all over the place. There's a sense of missing like communication. You don't know where the files have gone. You don't know where the messages have gone. And it slows work down. It makes work painful. Kintone solves this problem. So instead of having the information not being shared effectively, instead of not being clear where the conversation's happening, you can create what we call apps that put the conversations where the data is, so that they're living in harmony together. And then you can establish workflows so that the right people see the right things at the right time. You can imagine hiring processes, legal document reviews, expense reporting where it's submitted, you submit it to your manager, then they approve it, then they send it to the accounting department, so on and so forth. I mentioned apps, and I said the apps are like a key building block in Kintone. So an app you can imagine as like a powerful online table in a database where data is stored in records. And you can create apps by dragging and dropping fields with no coding needed, which is very nice if you want to build something fast, even if you're a developer or an engineer. And the nice thing for us as developers and as coders is that these apps are extensively customizable with client-side JavaScript. So as a no-code and a low-code platform, what it does is it lets anyone who needs to create apps for their jobs just very easy to build that stuff. And for us, we can enhance those apps with JavaScript. So that's what we are, when we think about groupware, this is really the promise of groupware, is sharing meaningful insights about data that become operationalized quickly. What do I mean by groupware? Imagine like collaborative software that helps teams work better together wherever they are. And so when you've got the data, you've got the communication about the data, it's all in one place. It makes for easier insights. It makes for easier action. And it solves some needs that are pretty, many teams are in desperate need of solving. Okay, well, who cares? You're not a developer. Why is this important? If you're a developer, why is this important to you? Well, it is important in a few ways. One is the stuff that you can build. So first of all, you can build and share enhancements, what we call extensions. You can imagine them as like almost like a Google Chrome extension, where you can build additional functionality to enhance native features, and then you can and package them with like settings pages that users can configure without ever needing to touch code. And then from a command center perspective, you've got a place that you can where you want to land on, and you can see what's going on. You can imagine like a more powerful version of Trello or Asana, where you've got all of the data in one place. And then you've got like a layer above this layer, you've got this collaboration layer with comments and process management. And for that to happen and piping your data from all of these different apps, so all of these different web applications, you need to create integrations to pipe that data in from various different places. And that's what the developers can make available. So when you're building with Kintone, we've got an open JavaScript API. We've got REST APIs that you can interact with, and which we'll be interacting with today. There are API tokens you can use to securely access Kintone. There are webhooks that you can use to kick payloads off to other other applications in your pipeline. Plugins which you can think of as extensions, like we were talking about, and various different kinds of customizations, which are like snippets of code that I say snippets. It's code that you run, files, just JavaScript, CSS. Even HTML customizations that let you change the look and feel of Kintone and then be able to show it to exactly the right people at exactly the right time. When I talk about a custom look and feel, I'm not kidding. One of Will's great achievements over here has been to get Space Invaders running in Kintone, which you see on the right-hand side, and then on the left-hand side, you see there's like a particular data visualization from a library called amcharts, which is like D3. So if you're looking to learn more, Kintone can help Kintone's a really safe and easy platform to start learning more JavaScript stuff, to contribute your learnings to tech blogs, to share your projects with the community. And if you're looking to create revenue, you can create and sell extensions. You can consult with firms on achieving their business goals, and you can develop Kintone customizations for customers. Okay. With that, let's go back to the live coding. We've built our front end, we've built our back end, and now what we want to do is set up our Kintone app. So if you haven't done so already, you can create a new Kintone app. You can add some records of data in it. Okay, we're going to use an app called MongoDB, which we've built out. It's not a database, it's an app, it's a table in a database. And so from here, what we're going to do is we're going to generate an API token. Once we generate an API token, we will be able to interact with this app programmatically. So what we're going to do is we go to that gear wheel, we're going to click on app settings. We go to in the center column, about the third one down, we're going to go to API token. Okay, and we will generate a token. We're going to use it. We're going to be able to, with this token, we can view records and add records. I'm going to go ahead and copy this token because I'll use it shortly, and we're going to save. Here's a critical part. We saved the token, but what we saved it is we saved it in a staging environment. We need to push to production, and we push to production by clicking Update App. Okay. Now, once we do that, we're going to make some updates to our code. Back in Server.js, okay, we're going to keep most of this stuff the same with a few changes. Okay, the first is we're going to update our REST API, our request endpoint. Now, previously we had been going to xkcd.com. What we're actually going to do now is we're going to go into your Kintone subdomain. So that'll be, well, let's just put it like this, const subdomain. And yours is going to be different than mine, okay? And we're also going to want const API token. This is our API token. You should be aware, though, that typically this kind of information is considered private and you should not make it public. What we're going to do is we're going to use our Kintone subdomain values. Remember, yours will be different than ours. If you were new to Kintone, then earlier in our session, like right at the very beginning, you would have created your own Kintone subdomain with some alphanumeric characters, okay? From here, we are making a request to this endpoint, okay? And one of the things that we're going to need to do is also identify our app ID. What do I mean by app ID? Well, in Kintone, all of these apps are uniquely numbered, okay? And if we're going to be interacting with them programmatically, we need their unique number. You can find that by going to this Kintone, like your Kintone URL for whatever your app is, and there's going to be a number over here. Our number is 27. The unique ID of this MangaDB is 27. For you, it'll probably be a number like 1 or 2 or 3. It'll be a much lower number. Well, we need to keep track of that number because what's going to happen is when we are querying this endpoint, we need to pass in the app ID as a parameter so that Kintone knows where to go. I've set it up like this so that you can see very clearly what are the variables that you need to put in. And then we'll change our fetch options. What we're going to do is we're going to add some headers so that Kintone can authenticate us appropriately. There is a header called express.js API token, which will have the value of API token. Okay, so now we'll save this. And we need to stop the server. You'll remember we forgot to do that and it wasn't pretty. So here we are going to Control C, stop the server, and then we'll spin it up again. And so now my expectation is when I go to my React app, I should have some different kind of data. Oh, okay, looks like something broke. Let's figure out what we did. Ah, subdomain. That's what was missing. Our subdomain is going to be dev events. And I'm going to break something if I don't use that comma. Let's go ahead and refresh that server. Where did I put my terminal? Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what we would expect to see. I dropped that quote mark and it exploded. So let's fix it. There we go. And now we'll come back over here and let's see how we did. Heck yeah, this is exactly what we're looking for. Battle Angel Alita. So this is the Kintone response presented as a string for our edification. What we're going to do now is render a list from the JSON response. So what we've showed you so far is not very pretty. It's a demonstration of workability. It is a proof of concept. But proof of concepts only matter to engineers and sales engineers. What matters to people who are the end users is that something looks pretty and is intuitive to use. Okay. What we're going to do is first we're going to go into our Kintone apps. And what you'll see is for this record, we've got the names of different fields. Checkbox, created by, created date time, text, text_0, text_1. These are the field codes. These are the unique IDs of the fields that are holding the data. Okay. What we want to do is we're going to want to take those field codes and make them more intuitive for us to use. So here in Kintone, I'm going to go to the title and the author fields, which are the ones that are relevant to me. And I'm going to change the title. Instead of saying text, it'll say title. And author, instead of saying text_1, it'll say author. Okay. So from here, we'll do one more thing, which is record number. We're going to change this to record ID. Okay, and once we do that, we'll save the form. We will update the app. Remember, that's going to push to production. And now what we can do, we can refresh this page, and you'll immediately notice the change in records. Look, author, record ID, title. That wasn't there before. It was like text _1. Now we can actually make this more human legible. All right, well, that's our first stop along the way. The next thing that we want to do is we're going to be getting, we want to get certain records. And we want to put that in our server that when we are fetching these records, we're doing them with certain parameters. So let's take these parameters and we're going to, oh, nope, that's not what I wanted. So let's take these parameters. We've got app equals app ID. And I'm going to give you some record ID ascending. So this is going to, these are just instructions for how to order the response that we receive. Okay. So that's going to retrieve the records in the order of the ascending order of the record number value. Okay. And what we're going to do is in this response, we're going to request, oh, well, you know what, we can keep this and we can keep these parameters here. And now, yeah, we can keep this like so. This is the walkthrough is a little bit different. It's going to overload the plus sign operator over here and pass in the parameters. At this point, we just put it up farther up the chain. Either one is fine for our purposes at the moment. And then what we'll do is we'll save this and we will update the Express server. And I'm not expecting, let's see, what are we expecting to happen? Well, here I am.
Don't be a large change.
It won't be a large change. Well, Will, what does the change suggest? What do we see over here? That's changed.
We should see two changes. One is the change in the field code that we made on the Kintone app.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the other is the order of this JSON, although it's like stringified and it's very hard to tell. The order should be in the order of record numbers.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, very cool. All right, well, so far so good. And from here, now let's work on this rendering. So we've been spending most of this time rendering this pretty human illegible JSON object. Now what happens on the, what can we do to make this look prettier? Okay, well, what we can do is we can begin to pull out the stuff that's important to us. We're pulling out a list of records from our Kintone app. So why don't we render the response as a list? Now that list is going to be returned to us as an array of objects. And so, and React has particular documentation for the way that it handles the array of objects. So what we're going to do is first let's get rid of this line right over here. And what we want to do is we want to present an array of like a list. So let's say list JSON response dot records. So what's happening is the response is an object, okay, and there is a value, sorry, a property of that object called records. Records is an array. Sorry, the value of records is an array. And what we're going to do is we're going to map for every record in that array, we're going to do the following. I'm going to use a little bit of syntactic sugar jazz over here. And we're going to pick off a property of that. It's an array, and then this record is an object. So here we've got this JSON response, which is an object. It has a property called records on it, the value of which is an array. Each item in the array, each record in the array is an object. And for each one of those objects, we're going to pick off the property called title. And in there, there's another property called value. And that's what we're going to be picking off. That and another property, the value of the author. Okay, and then we're going to return list. Okay, we'll go ahead and save this, and let's take a look at what happened. Cool, we've got an unordered list over here. Things are starting to get prettier real fast. This is an advantage of React. We don't need to think as much about the what is being rendered, or sorry, the how it's being rendered, as much as what it is that we want to see, and then a lot's happening behind the scenes. But what about this console? Each child in a list should have a unique key prop. What this means is that for basically React is asking us to uniquely identify each item in the list for its own reasons. This is a pretty easy fix for us. All we're going to do is indicate is put in, go li inside of that list. We're going to include the record ID over here. Record ID dot value. And that's it. It's just a little quirk of React to make sure that we are uniquely identifying the items in a list. Let's go ahead and refresh the page, and we should see exactly that error is gone. Okay, so far so good. Now what? Well, we told you that we would be teaching you how to post information from React into Kintone, into a web database. And what we're going to do next is we're going to add some forms, some input elements over here, so that we can add items to using our front end, and then they'll be passed into our back end in Kintone, and we can see the changes that we make from our front end all the way through our pipeline. Okay, so at this point, we are going to make a new endpoint in our backend. So far, all of what we've done has been getting. Okay, but now we actually want to handle the posting of data. So what we're going to do is the following. We're going to split up this request endpoint actually into two different endpoints. There's an endpoint for handling multiple records, like if we want to get multiple records at a time. And then there's a single record. So if we're going to post one single record at a time. So if you notice, I made the change, I dropped that plural S over here, okay? And then let's see about the parameters. I will drop the parameters off of here as well, although I will need an app ID. Equals, there we go. And now what we want to do is inside of get data, request endpoint doesn't exist anymore. We want multiple records endpoint. And now we're going to create a new route to handle the posting. Okay. So Express has a method called post, which allows us to very quickly spin up a new endpoint called located at post.
To include a slash before post data.
Thank you.
It's an endpoint.
Eagle Eye Will. Boy, is it good to be paired programming with you, buddy. Okay, what are we going to do over here? Well, we need to specify a body that we're going to be posting. You can grab the body from the walkthrough. I'll actually, you know what? I'll drop it in here. This is the body. And I'll also, I will also drop it right above over here. You just make sure that you change your app ID. Excuse me, folks. You change your app ID appropriately. And my bad. This actually needs to be inside of the body of the post method because it's referring to the request that's being passed in. Okay, so we've got title and we've got author just like we've changed. And now let's set some options. The method, it's going to be post. And we're going to need some headers again. So I'm going to grab the Server.js API token that I had up here. Now, if you want to be rigorous, you could actually have two separate tokens, one for the getting and one for the posting. We're going to keep it simple. And the content type is going to be application JSON, and then the body is going to be a stringified version of the request body. Okay, so now we're going to want options then to set in the second argument of the fetch request. Response. From here, we've got our options, we've got our request body. Now we're going to handle the options and constant. Hey, Will, I have a question about this.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed that I'm inside of this posting to another endpoint, I noticed that I'm fetching over here. Seems like I'm overload. There's some way of like I'm overloading the fetch function to actually act like I'm posting something. Any thoughts about that?
That's because it's in the options. So if you don't place any options, I think it defaults to a GET request. But since you placed the method as a post in the options, it overrides it with a post request.
I find this really interesting. I'm so used to using fetch as just like something I make exclusively for GET request, but I'm actually doing something else over here with it. So if that, just folks, make sure that doesn't throw you.
Oh yeah, the verb fetch. It's a bit,
yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay, so from here, we're almost done. We're going to need something called middleware to, let me get this to where we need to go. What I'm going to want to do inside of the my project folder, so I can go up a bit, is I'm going to npm install something called body parser. And what body parser does is it's going to make it so that the request body from the client side is going to be read successfully. So from here, then I'm going to import it into my server. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm using it. Oops. There we go. Body parser is deprecated. Oh, interesting. Okay, well, I guess we'll know for next time.
I better check up on that.
Yeah, let's do that. So from here, we will go ahead and update our code. Node server.js app before initialization. So let's see what's happening over here. App.use body parser cannot access app before initialization. Ah, my God, I put it in before line 7. How could this happen to me? There we go. Okay. Now, folks, if you set up your API token to both view and add records, you should have no problem over here. But if you had only set it to view records, you'll need to update the permissions of your API token so that it can be set to view and add records at the same time. What we're going to do at this point is updating the, let's see, we can go to our React app over here and test to see, okay, how are we doing? We can run code in our developer console, which will tell us if we are on the right track. So what we're going to do is I'm going to copy and paste a bunch of code into here, which you can pick up on this on the site. And what it's going to do is it's going to indicate the endpoint to use, the options to pass in. It's going to pass in some sample title and author, and then we're going to fetch and we're going to see if it gets updated over here, if we were able to successfully pass in data. And it looks like we were. In fact, this is exactly what Kintone will tell us when we're successful. It'll tell us the ID of the new record as well as the revision. So if we refresh this page, we've got test title written by test author, which tells us that everything's working well from the back end perspective. Now what we're going to do is update the client side code. So the way that we're going to do that is to create a form with 2 input fields, set the request endpoints, and take steps accordingly. So we've got, where is it? Where is that fetch rest endpoint? Well, we're not doing this anymore. We now have a get records endpoint, and we have a post or add records endpoint, which will look very much like what the above one is with a minor change. And what we want to do is we're going to update this fetch rest endpoint to get records that endpoint. Okay, now what about the other stuff? Okay, well, what else do we need? Well, how about this use state? What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to build a form. We're going to want to once the form is filled out, once the form is form is submitted, we're going to want to take that the information that we just put in, and we're going to store it. We're going to store it in our state before we pass it on in our API request. So what we want to do is we want to create. Where's my render result? Okay, for these input fields. We are going to want to create these states. So we're going to have a state for the title. And we're gonna use state. And we're passing in an empty string as the initial record. And then we're gonna do the same thing with author. Author value, set author value, use state. Okay. And from here, we're going to create a form. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and grab this from our page, and we're going to replace the render result return with this value. Oops, there it is. There it is. Okay, here we go. Here's a form. This is our API request. And the HTML4 attribute is React's version of the for element. So it's going to associate the label with the appropriate input. Okay. Now, if we stop here, we'll get some errors in the console because we haven't defined title value, author value. We haven't defined this button click. So what we're going to do is we're going to just real quickly inside of the render result function, we'll put them in. Let's say function handle title change. Function handle author change. And function button click. So we go handle title change, handle author change, and button click. And here's where we define the function. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save this. And hold on a moment. Let's see what we declared. Its value is never read. Type of value. Let's see. React hooks. What are we saying over here? React hooks use state cannot be called at the top level. They must be called in a React function component. So what's happened is I've set state up here outside of a particular function scope. It's no problem. I can just go ahead and throw them in over here with the rest of where the scope is getting handled. We'll go ahead and I'll save that. And failed to compile. Oh, we're going to refresh that. Sweet. All right. We've got ourselves with a form rendered. And now what we got to do is we got to change these handle, title, placeholder, these stub functions. And so this is very simple. So on a title change, when you pass in some kind of event, we're going to set title value, and we're going to pass in set author value when we're handling the author change on some event. And for button click, what we're going to do is we are going to, when the button is clicked, we're making an API call, and we're doing it with the add new record. We are passing in a list. We need to give it a key, and we're giving it a key of 0, which is never ever used in Kintone. So this is guaranteed to be unique. And then it's harking to an add new record function, which we're going to go ahead and fill in. This is sort of a bit like, you know, draw the rest of the owl. But let's go ahead and do this. So what's happening so far? Okay, when this, when we've got this result, we're handling the state for an author, we're handling the state for a title, and when the button click is hit, then we are going to set the API response. And then we're going to make that API call with this function called add new record, which is going to pass in the value of the title and the author. And there it is. So what is the title? What is the author? Well, it's whatever we put into those that title and author field. And then we're going to want to put together our options. So we're passing along the correct options along the way. And from there, oh, oops. This is my bad, folks. This needs to happen on our Express side. Author, let's see. To do.
I thought it was okay. Isn't it?
Yeah. But on the Express side, we need to. Second. No. We're still sorry.
Oh no, yeah.
We're still on the client side. I'm gonna do a little bit of and here's the rest of the owl, which I acknowledge is, you know, not the greatest thing to do.
Yeah, we're running out of time anyway. Yeah. By the way, set API response in the button click function. It should have capital letters for API. That's why it's giving a squiggly line.
This one over here.
Yeah, it should be capital API.
capital AP. Oh, AP and I. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
Great.
There we go.
Okay. What we've done over here is we've set up a post call, and what's this? Add record endpoint is not defined. Folks, I want to let you know it's now 8 o'clock Pacific time. We're probably going to run another 5 to 7 minutes over. So if you need to go at this point, I just want to say thank you for joining us. If you'd like to stick around, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll wrap this up very soon. And I want to get to the place where we are so close. So close. Add record endpoint. This was add records endpoint, but we actually need to just drop. Perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and test this and see if it works. What I'm expecting is we'll put in the title, which will be Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. Never mind that that's not a manga. We're going to add data, and looks like the message port closed before response was received. Yeah, it looks like let's go ahead and restart my Express server just in case. Okay, gone ahead and done that. And we've it looks like it was passed into Kintone, and we can verify that by here I am in Kintone. There it is, Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. So there's my soup to nuts build. Okay. So we could fix some render. Yeah, that's right. We did not use append child. And Bitblog says, why do you need options in both client and Express? You need options every time you're making a call. And so in the client side, we're making a call to an endpoint on our Express server called the post data endpoint. So the Express server is waiting to receive a request, and that request needs to have options on it. That's what's happening over here on the client side. You didn't use append child, right? We did not use append child. Could you please, you're confused. Could you please reframe your question in a way that would help us answer it? I'm not sure what is the source of your confusion. And from here, I think it's time that we wrapped up. You're not adding just the element. Is your question, you're not adding just the element? I still don't understand the question. You might be asking, how did we never touched HTML. How the heck did we get a new input element over here? That's my interpretation of what you're asking. And so the answer is React. We used JSX in React to lean on the JavaScript and the magic of React to create that HTML for us. It's a part of it's the code snippet that we're returning as part of this render result element. You're refreshing the whole page. So my understanding is that when I hit the refresh button, we refresh the whole page. But as far as what happens when something gets refreshed over here, React would just refresh the elements that need refreshing. You're saying that because this whole function is a React component, that all of it's going to be refreshed, yes, that's accurate. Does that answer your question?
I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, you could build the form on a different component and then append it. We're just lazy and put in one thing.
Yeah, we wanted to focus on some other stuff. Yeah, you could split out a whole bunch of these things into other components. What I want to do right now is sum up our time together. So we built out a front end, we called an API, we outputted it into React. We were going to encounter core zeros, so we set up an Express server. Then we set up the front end so that we could get data from Kintone and ultimately post data into Kintone. So let's talk about next steps. You could play around in the following ways. You could handle the response so that it renders as tables. You could try a harder thing to make, like harder things to post. You could try calling a public API from the list that we have over here. Deploy your app to somewhere like Heroku. You can share your experience on dev.to. If you have any help, if you need any help, if you're stuck, you can always share your code on Kintone Developer Community Forum or on Stack Overflow, where we check frequently and we can give you a response, I think typically within like 24 to 48 hours. Thank all of you for your time. I know it's valuable. You could have done a lot of other things during this time, and you spent it with us. For that, we just appreciate it, and we hope that we have the opportunity to see you again in the future. And we hope that we have the opportunity to see you playing with our Kintone platform, and we hope that it provides for a very fruitful experience for you.
All right, thanks again, everyone, for joining this workshop. I wanted to also thank our community partner, HackBuddy by JavaScript LA. And we also wanted to let you know that we do have future workshops, so please join us. You can find out more about these workshops by going to the bit.ly on your screen there. So it's bit.ly KDP_events.
Okay, folks, we're going to call it at this point. Everybody have a wonderful evening. Take care and see you around.
All right. Thank you, everyone.